Good morning. Today is the 8th of Tammuz, the 27th of June. And we finished with the question. What was the question? So since why would it not be that in every generation there should be someone who is a complete tzaddik, a consummate tzaddik? Right. And would do complete tshuva, without any evil at all. The answer is,
there is.
Obviously there is. But there is such a person, but now he's going to tell us, remember we always quote that Tzemach Tzedek, when they were in the Shiva for the Alter Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek saw that they were crying about the Alter Rebbe because everybody felt that he would be the Mashiach. And so he said to them that it's useless, your crying is useless, he said to them. He said, the Mashiach that everybody is waiting for will never come, and the Mashiach that will come, nobody is waiting for. Well, we always say this, this is a very famous thing. From me, you've heard this at least 10 times, but from other people, probably not 1,000. And then because it's a very famous thing, everybody loves to quote it because it's such a mind twister. Right?
How old is this Tzemach Tzedek?
20? So now he gives us a definition, and I said that I think that the Rebbe went by this definition about what the Mashiach is. He says like this: Einyan she'inyan Mashiach hu berur. The concept of Mashiach is about refinement. Berur, we always have a problem with this word, exactly what is sifting. Sifting through the world, separating things, the good from the evil. That's what the Mashiach is about. What do we mean? Perush. Berur atov min hara. First of all, it's berur, taking the good out of the negative. Now this is the opposite concept of berur that we have on Shabbos. On Shabbos you can't take the klipa out of the pri. Right? And only as an adjunct can you not take the good out of the bad. But when you're eating, for instance, since it's the way that you eat, there's no problem. In any case, this is not the usual concept of birur in halacha. In halacha, it's the opposite. You take the negative out of the positive. Here he's saying, Mashiach is about getting the opposite, the good out of the evil. To make sure that the evil falls off. And if you remember, there's a lot of discussion about this. We saw like at least one mimer when he talked about the difference between when you take the dross out or when you take the precious metal out. There are two different refinement processes when you're doing metallurgy. They're just opposites. And we said that the big difference is that when you take the good out of the bad, what you have is pure good. But when you take the bad out of the good, so the good still has some bad in it, because you haven't finished the process. You still have to go through a few more cycles to truly refine it. So the good still is with the negative. Psychologically, what this means is, what is the ikar? What is the main thing? Do I feel myself to be good that has been removed from the evil, and the evil has fallen to the side? Or do I feel myself to still be a mixture of good and evil, and I've been able to take some of the evil out? It's a different picture of self. So now he says like this: Lechen lo yavo ki im bedor shekulo tov. So the Mashiach can come either in a generation that's all zakai or all chayav. Here he says only this option, shekulo tov, okay? Meaning that they're only good, or chule, or that he doesn't say the second part. The second part would be that they're all negative, they're all bad. But what do you mean by they're all bad? Why doesn't he quote it? First of all, you could say he doesn't want to say the negative side. He's like the Rebbe, he doesn't want to say the negative side. Okay, but he meant the whole saying. Or, as we'll see now, that if you leave it on the other side, then the person is always looking at themselves negatively. Because because what does it mean that they're all negative? It means that really the good has been separated out, and I happen to feel like the one who's taken all the negative. It's like we're all in this together in a certain sense, and I have only the negative. We'll see in a moment what he means. Some people do this naturally to themselves, which is wrong. You shouldn't do that, because the Rebbe is going to say now this is not the right thing to do. In the negative, each person seems to himself like the dross of the silver. So there's two pictures that you can have of yourself. Either I'm the refined good, or I've also refined, but I'm taking the dross out. I'm being refined all the time, so I'm still the dross.
In metallurgy, you can never make something 100% pure. In metallurgy, you can never get 100% pure.
Right, you can't get 100% pure, but that's when you remove the dross. And the theory here is that when you remove the silver from the ore, then the silver is completely clean. Anyway, we haven't finished Ismailach. He's saying like this: every person feels that he's a mixture. That's what it means. It's like a dol shekulo chayav. We're all a mixture. That's what we feel. And then again, what do you want to feel? That I've been removed from the mixture, I've been refined out, and I'm the leftover good. Okay? Or, and this is how I think he means it, that when I look at myself, each person looks at themselves, what does he see? And then I'm the dross. And when he looks at everyone else, what does he say? They're all the refined silver. And that I think is the correct way he's interpreting this. Dol shekulo zakai o kulo chayav. What does that mean? That each person has to decide. I can look at everyone else as dross. I can look at myself as refined. Or I can do the opposite. Everyone else is refined, and I'm the dross.
You've got two problems with it in both directions.
Why?
First of all, nobody's perfectly refined except for Tzaddik. And second of all, you're not supposed to look at yourself and say, I'm full of dross and I'm garbage. You're not supposed to put yourself down. No, that's speak Lashon Hara against
100%. Let's see now. וכל זמן שלא בא Mashiach, and as long as the Mashiach has not come, הוא תערוב וטוב ורע בכל העולמות. It's not just in the people, it's in all the world. Everything is a mixture. But the point here is that you have to assume that everything that you look at is initially a mixture. There's no such thing as something that's entirely refined or something that's not. There's no such thing.
Because of the problem
Right? 100%. דהיינו שאין שום דבר שיהיה טוב גמור ולא יימצא בו שום פסול רע ושמץ מינהו, וכן ברע גמור יש ניצוץ קצת טוב, וטוב ורע מעורבים זה בזה. In any case, whether you didn't like the example I gave, that's the example that's the way I usually feel. And when I look in myself, I should always say, I'm kuli chayav. When I look at others, I say, kulo zakai. But you don't like that, it's fine, you don't have to like that. You don't like it, it's okay. The point is now, what he's saying is, you have to accept the fact that everything is a mixture. First, you have to accept that fact. Like you said, here I have an explanation why this is. Because of Shvirat HaKelim, because of the shattering of the vessels. But first of all, you have to accept that. Now, ולכן, אם יחזור צדיק אחד בתשובה שלמה, אז יהיה עניין משיח. And then, if one person does tshuva, complete tshuva, then the Mashiach will come. Why? What's the connection? What does this mean? Because what's he doing?
Elevating everybody else.
Because we said, what does he do? If he becomes that tzaddik, then he affects everyone else. But what does tshuva here mean? What does it mean here to do tshuva? We usually think that tshuva means to do what? To change all my actions. He's saying, no, this is the big premise of Chasidus, that it's not just changing my actions. It's first of all how I see the world. If I don't change how I see the world, then that's not Chasidus. That's halacha, that's Muslim, many good things, but it's not Chasidus yet. Chasidus is I have to change the way I see the world. So now he says like this, and this is where the big chiddush comes, and this is exactly where I think the Rebbe cling to this his whole life. Lachen hayared dvar Hashem, the person who is God fearing, yizaher meod biroto ra b'chavero she'al yimayer le'ashimo b'dato. The first thing when he sees something, okay, whenever I see something negative in someone else, I don't blame him. First of all, ela yitbonen atov haganuz bara. But because everything is a mixture, then I look at the good that is mixed in there. And that's what I want to look at. Somebody's going to say this is exactly like Rav Nachman, and we'll say in a moment why it's not exactly like Rav Nachman, but just in a second. Even the lightest, what we call the slightest of the slight, the people who are completely unconscious of themselves. They don't think at all about their actions. They have no accountability, nothing. They're the slightest, the lightest of the slight. But really, you need to have very careful consideration about this. Why? ואף שמוחו מקטנות, שהוא מידות אכזריות ודינין שאינו מכיר בדעתו שני הצדדים לרע ולטוב, מכל מקום יראה בכל כוחו להשתדל לראות להתבונן בטוב בלבד. So he says, it's not just that I admit that everything is a mixture, but when I look at something, I'm going to ignore the negative. How can I ignore the negative? It's here. He says, there's a big chidush in the whole thing of the shattering of the vessels. What was that meant to tell me? It was meant to tell me that everything that you're seeing is struggling to lift itself out of the klipa, out of husks, out of impurity. And the impurity is not from him. The impurity is caused by something that cascaded down long before he existed. It's what we call the substrate on which everything is growing, on which everything is living. And because of this substrate, everything is in a struggle to free itself from the good. From the evil. It's trying to get the dross out. Everything is trying to remove itself from the dross. But now here's the difference. That I said before, you could look at it that you're trying to remove the dross, or you can understand that I'm trying to refine the good out of the dross. If I look at it that I'm trying to remove the dross, that would say that the dross is up to me. And here he doesn't want to say this. He wants to say the opposite. You have to assume that the dross is like a state of nature. The mixture is a state of nature. The negative substrate here is a state of nature. How did it come about? Okay, so we have the story about the shattering of the vessel. It doesn't matter.
So then you got a complaint against Hashem, who built the world in such a way that nobody can be perfect.
You don't have to be perfect. That's the whole point. He's saying, by definition, nothing is perfect. By definition, everything is a mixture. Everything from the beginning to the end. Everything is a mixture. What does it mean to do tshuva? What does it mean to be good? What does it mean? It's to see the good and not the negative. That's what Mashiach means. And now, if I would ask 100 people, what was the trait that you most saw by the Rebbe? I would say that he never looked at the negative. He always...
wrong.
What?
He didn't know there was a
No, he knew.
See it.
He knew 100%. He said, how is it that a person who's full of averos is called sorry, how is it? He said the opposite. How is it that the person who has so many mitzvos is called the Poshei Yisrael? But the point is that always, whatever he looked at, he wanted you to see the good. He says that's Mashiach. Mashiach means, again, we said that in Moshe Rabbeinu's generation, he took everybody up to be a prophet. Because that's what that generation was. But that was Moshe Rabbeinu then. What is the Mashiach? He says the person who teaches you to only see the good. Amen. And even when you have small-minded, you're petty-minded, you can't see the good. Because you're not that complex. What you see is the person now just hurt me. The person just did this, did that. And he says, still, I want to teach you, learn from my example. He says, to only see the good. So he never said the word death. He even didn't say the word evil. He didn't say these words. Who ever heard of someone, of all Gdolei Yisrael, anybody, all the leaders of every generation who never said these words? Everybody said these words. But he was to the farthest extreme to change the consciousness. Again, and that's what he means, that you can change the consciousness. I can't make people good. What can I do? I can change the way they see things. And so the whole thing was, and you see that it's working. You see that it's working. If you come and you say, and you give people chastise them, it doesn't work at all. But the moment that you're makarev people, the moment that you say someone something good, and you say, this is your true nature, this is who you really are. So when I come to say to someone, you're lowly, they can't stand it. So I don't say that. What do I say? You don't need to be lowly. You need to make more room for God. I know that you are such a holy person that you can feel that everything here is godly. That is the definition of lowliness. When a person is lowly, he's basically he's making space for Hashem. And it's a different definition. Instead, I say to them something negative they can't hear, but I say to them something like this, which is positive, and this is the and this is the way that the Rebbe saw it.
You don't just accept it. You fix it.
Now, how amazing is this short essay? What?
The first topic is 10 minutes.
You'll make it.
If you would come on time, we would have finished.